My name is Walter Reed. I was 64 years old when I got fired. Not retired. Fired. I'd worked for the same company, Halverson Manufacturing, for 42 years. I started as a line operator in 1980 and stayed through 3 buyouts, 2 factory relocations, and a corporate merger that nobody really understood. I gave them everything: my knees, my back, my weekends. I missed my daughter's high school play because the plant ran behind. I missed my wife's anniversary dinner because of an emergency audit. But I was a loyal man. I believed in loyalty. I believed that if you kept your head down, worked hard, and stayed out of trouble, the system would reward you. Turns out the system doesn't remember your name when the spreadsheets say you're expensive. The day they let me go, I wore my best flannel. I brought donuts for the floor crew. I'd planned to make it to 65 and then retire with a quiet barbecue and a few beers with the boys. Instead, Mr. Kellerman from HR called me into a sterile conference room. He didn't even look me in the eye. "Walter, this is hard for us, but due to downsizing, your role is being eliminated effective immediately. You'll be given 2 weeks of severance and information on Cobra coverage." My ears rang. I stared at the walls. There was a clock ticking. I focused on it because everything else was too loud. "I'd sub you 42 years, I said. "We're grateful for your service," he replied, like a damn voicemail. "You can't wait 1 more year." It's not personal. It's always personal when you're the one losing everything. I packed my things in a cardboard box. My nameplate, a photo of my wife and daughter, a worn mug that said Mo One Dad. Even though I'd never been sure I was, the plant manager, Dale, didn't even come down to shake my hand. He sent a text. I didn't answer it. I drove home with the windows down, though it was cold. I needed air. I needed to feel something. My wife, Ellen, was in the kitchen when I walked in. She was slicing carrots. I placed the box on the table. She looked at it, then at me. "You're home early." "I'm home for good." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "They fired me." The knife stopped. "But retirement was next March." "It's not anymore." She said nothing. She just went back to slicing carrots. That night, we sat in silence. No TV, no music. Just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the occasional clink of a fork. I went to bed early. I stared at the ceiling. And for the first time since I was a boy, I felt completely unseen. In the day that followed, I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I applied for jobs. No one called. I watched the news. I fixed a leaky faucet. I trimmed the hedges. Ellen returned to her hobbies: quilting, book club, church group. We shared a roof, but it felt like we lived in different worlds. One morning she handed me a pamphlet. "This is from Margaret at church," she said. "They have volunteer programs. You could do something useful." Useful. That stung more than it should have. My daughter, Rachel, called me one evening. "Hey, Dad, Mom said you're done with work now." "Yeah," I replied. "Not exactly how I planned it." "Well, maybe it's for the best. You can finally relax." Relax. It sounded like a curse. Because I didn't want to relax. I didn't want to sit in a recliner and wait for Medicare. I wanted meaning, but I had no idea how to find it. 2 weeks after I got fired, I started walking in the mornings. Not for fitness, not for fun, just to be somewhere else for a while. I'd stop by Maple Park, sit on the same bench, watch the ducks. Sometimes I brought coffee, sometimes I didn't. One day, an older man sat next to me. He looked about 70, wore a green cap and a faded jacket. We didn't speak for a while. Then he said, "You retired?" "Kinda," I replied. "More like retired against my will." He chuckled. "That's the best kind." strips the illusion fast. I looked at him. You get let go too? Twice, once from a bank, once from a wife. I left. First time in weeks. His name was Henry Coles, former accountant, widower, lived 2 blocks away. He came to the park every morning because, in his words, that's where the world pretends to pause. We started meeting there every day. He talked, I listened. He told me about losing his job in the recession and about his daughter who lived in Oregon, about his love for chess, which he hadn't played in years. One morning, he brought a small foldable board. Play? He asked. I hadn't touched a chess piece in decades. He beat me in 6 moves. Over time, other retirees joined the park. A man who once ran a hardware store, a former teacher, a woman who'd been a librarian for 40 years. They formed a little group, the Park Bench Roundtable. They talked about everything: books, local gossip, politics, old loves. I didn't say much at first, but Henry always made space for me. He never pushed. And slowly I opened up, told them about the factory, about Ellen's silence, about Rachel's distance, about feeling invisible. Henry nodded. You know what the problem is, he said. Men like us were taught to believe our worth ends with our job title. That line hit me hard. One day, Henry brought a flyer. Community Repair Cafe. A church basement. Once a month. People bring broken items. Volunteers help fix them. You ever work with your hands? He asked. 40 years on machines. Then come fix a toaster. I shrugged, but I went. The basement smelled like coffee and WD-40. Tables were set up with tools, wires, old appliances. A woman brought in a broken fan. An old man needed help with a clock radio. A boy came in with his RC car. I fixed all 3. And when I looked up, they were smiling at me like I mattered. One woman touched my arm. You just saved me $80. And in that moment, I felt something warm. Not pride, not ego, usefulness. I came back the next month, and the next. Soon, they asked me to lead the electronics table. They gave me a name tag that read, Walt, Fixer. I wore it like a medal. At home, Ellen started noticing. You're out a lot lately, she said. Repair cafe, park, volunteering. She nodded, didn't say more. But one evening she came into the living room with a toaster in her hands. This one's been acting up. I opened the cover, adjusted the coil, cleaned out the crumbs. When I handed it back, she smiled, a real smile. Thanks, Walt. It had been years since she said my name like that. One Saturday morning, I arrived early at the repair cafe. Coffee in hand, toolbox in the other. I liked setting up the tables. Liked the rhythm of unpacking wires, untangling cords, preparing for whatever came in broken. That's when she walked in. Tall, mid-fees, gray streak in her hair. She wore a scarf that looked handmade and the glasses that made her look like a poet. She carried a sewing machine. They told me you're the man to see for lost causes, she said, with a smile. That depends, I replied. How lost is it? It only goes backward. I took the machine, placed it on the table, and started examining it. Her name was Laura, artist, divorced, had moved back to town after living in Chicago for 20 years. She watched me work, not impatient, not hovering, just present. I liked that. The fag took 40 minutes. We talked the whole time about old music, about books we never finished, about how people don't talk to strangers anymore unless something breaks. When I handed her the working machine, she lit up. You're good at this. Fixing things. Listening. She thanked me, genuinely, and walked out. But the next Saturday she came again, not with a broken machine, but with coffee and 2 muffins. Thought you might need a break today. I blinked. Nobody had brought me muffins in years. We sat outside after the shift. Talked again. This became a thing. Week after week, Laura came back, sometimes with broken items, sometimes just with conversation. She invited me to an art show. I went. I didn't understand half of it, but I loved the way she moved through the room like she belonged. She introduced me as the guy who fixed my machine and made me believe in people again. One evening, we sat on a bench at sunset. "You ever think," she said, "that getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to you?" I looked at her, and I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at the company, not at Ellen, not at myself. Because for the first time in decades, I wasn't just existing. I was alive. Ellen noticed too. We sat down one night after dinner. No TV, no noise. She cleared her throat. "You seem different lately." I felt different. "Is it the clay?" "Partly, and the people, and someone new." She didn't ask it cruelly, just plainly. I didn't lie. "Maybe," she nodded slowly. "I always wanted you to find something after the factory. I just didn't know it wouldn't include me." I reached for her hand. "I didn't expect any of this, Ellen." She smiled, a little sad, a little grateful. "Neither did I, but I'm glad you're not bitter." We stayed married, but became companions instead of lovers. And, oddly enough, that felt right. There was no drama, no betrayal. Just two people growing into separate chapters with mutual respect. Sometimes that's the cleanest ending love can offer. By spring, I was doing more than just repairs. Henry had suggested I give a talk at the local library. Call it something like, "What Fixing Things Taught Me About People." I laughed at first, but then I did it. 5 people showed up. Next month, 12. Then a classroom full. People weren't coming for my soldering tips. They came for something else. For the way I told stories. For the way I paused when saying, sometimes things look ruined, but all they need is someone willing to look closer. It hit people, especially the older crowd. Those who also felt discarded, replaced, left behind by the shiny rush of modern life. One woman cried after a talk, said her husband had died the year before, said she hadn't heard someone speak from the heart in months. I hugged her, carefully, the way we do when words fall short. Laura encouraged me to write. "To blogs," Boo said. "People still read when it's honest." So I did. Walt Fixes Things became my corner of the internet. A mix of repair tips, short reflections, and stories about aging, meaning, and making peace with the past. It got shared. Locals subscribed. A podcast producer reached out. "You ever thought of narrating these?" I didn't even know how to record audio, but Trish, the librarian, helped me. Within 3 months, I had 5,000 subscribers, then 10,000. People sent me letters, emails, voice messages. They said things like, "Your words make me feel seen." I thought I was the only one who felt invisible after 60. "You reminded me my life isn't over." One message stuck with me. "My son stopped calling after I lost my job, but I sent him your story about rebuilding. He called me the next day." That message broke something in me. And I rebuilt something too. I wasn't famous, but I mattered. In rooms I'd never enter. In lives I'd never meet. All because someone fired me. Ellen came to one of my talks, sat quietly in the back. Afterward she hugged me. "You were always good with your hands. Now you're good with your voice too." I smiled. We went out for pie, talked about Rachel, talked about grandkids, talked like 2 old friends, which honestly felt warmer than most marriages I'd seen. Laura and I grew closer. She didn't try to change me, didn't fill silence. She let me be quiet, and somehow that made me want to speak more. She painted a portrait of me once, not literal but emotional. Dark reds, warm browns, a center streak of gold. That's where you shine when you think no one's watching, she said. It brought tears to my eyes. One morning, I got a letter from Halverson Manufacturing. It was an invitation. You are cordially invited to the 75th anniversary celebration of the plant. All past employees welcome. I stared at it. I hadn't been back in 3 years. Laura saw my face. You don't have to go. I think I do. For them? No, for me. The factory looked the same from the outside. Big beige building, flapping flag, smell of steel and oil in the wind. Inside, they'd painted the walls, new posters, younger faces, but the bones were the same. A man in his 30s shook my hand at the door. Walter Reed, right? My dad used to work with you. Said you were a legend. Legend? I'd never thought of myself that way. I walked through the halls. Some folks remembered me, some didn't, but a few stopped me. Hey, you're the guy from that fixing blog. I saw your video on rewiring old amps. You helped my mom fix her dryer. And for the first time, I wasn't Walter the ex-employee. I was Walt, the guy who mattered now. I found Dale, my old manager, by the buffet. He looked thinner, grayer. Walt, he said, didn't think you'd come. Neither did I. No hard feelings, I hope. I took a deep breath. You know what? I did. For a long time. He nodded, eyes low. It was corporate. Numbers. I had no say. I believe you. I bid, but it still hurt. I get it. Then he said something I didn't expect. You ended up landing on your feet though, huh? I looked around. No, I landed in the sky. After the event, I stood outside the factory gates, closed my eyes, listened to the clang of metal, the hum of machines, then walked away. Not bitter, not triumphant, just complete. That night I sat with Laura on the back porch. She leaned on my shoulder. We watched the stars. She held my hand. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The factory, the old life. I thought about it. Sometimes, but it wasn't the place I missed. It was the version of me I thought only existed there. And now I know better. She kissed my cheek. We sat in silence, the kind of silence that holds you gently, not the kind that makes you feel alone. A few months later, I launched a program through the library, Fixers and Founders, a series where retirees mentor young adults. They teach welding, sewing, car repair, and in return the kids teach them social media, websites, editing. We fix things together. Objects, confidence, belonging. One day Rachel called, Dad, I've been reading your blog. Oh yeah? Yeah. I shared your piece on making peace with broken things with my friend. She cried. Wow. I'm proud of you, Dad, really. That one sentence made every year of silence worth waiting through. I still wake up early, still walk to the park, still sit on the bench where I met Henry. He passed last winter, left me his chessboard. I keep it with me. Sometimes play alone. Sometimes let strangers sit and make the first move, because you never know what can begin from something broken. They fired me thinking it was the end. But it was just the last page of an old book, and the beginning of my favorite chapter.